And if we are, oh, we are good. This Zoom, I say every month that I'm going to switch over to another platform because this Zoom just drives me crazy for these live chats. You don't know when you're going live. And then sometimes you just end up in that endless loop. And I don't know why. But we're live now. So I'm Kelly Coates-Gilbert. I am your host here at She's Reading, and I'm broadcasting from Dallas, Texas. And tonight I have one of my favorite people on the planet, Rachel Hanna. Rachel is a really close friend of mine. I just enjoy her. I love her books. She just had one come out on Tuesday that we're going to talk about, and I'm so excited about it. I read the first chapter last night, and I could barely put it down. So I'm looking forward to this one. But before we get started, let me at least tell you who she is. Rachel Hanna is a USA Today best-selling author and lifelong resident of North Georgia. And I think we have some Georgia members here that join us often. So if that's you, put in the comments, I'm in Georgia too. She writes women's fiction, clean, contemporary small-town romance, and stories about Southerners. Her quirky characters and emotional storylines are a favorite of readers. She had a breakout book called The Beach House. Is that right? Is that the one that broke out?
That's the one.
Okay. I looked up and I went, what? She has 25,761 reviews on The Beach House. I have never seen that, even on some of the biggest books out there. Girlfriend. Yeah. And they're all well above 4.5. So that just tells you how much her readers love her. Here are some excerpts from her reviews. Rachel Hanna writes well-drawn and lovable characters I want to be friends with. I could not put this book down. I was filled with so many emotions reading this book. I got Kleenex and was laughing at the same time. And then the last one I really loved. I need a Dawson in my life. So there you have it, everyone. That's Rachel. And she writes that Southern fiction that we all love. And we were just talking before we came on air, and her brand new series, which she's going to tell us about, is going to be formed just a little bit after the Mitford series, which was one of my all-time favorites. So I'm excited. So tell us just a little bit about your journey to publication. And did you always know you wanted to be a novelist?
Yeah, well, I wrote stories when I was little. I found some of those recently, and they are not going to be published. I hate to break it to y'all, but they're not that interesting. I always loved to write, and I tell this story often, but I was in third grade and I had a wonderful teacher named Mrs. Ham. And I remember one day turning in a story to her, and then she turned it back into me, and she leaned down where none of the other kids could hear her. And she whispered in my ear and she said, "You're going to be a great author one day." And I was like, okay, it just sort of filed it away, in my little brain. And I went to journalism school, and I was in broadcast journalism and print journalism for years. And then kind of took a detour into real estate because it's the family business, did that for about 15 years. And then this thing called Kindle came along, and I started hearing about people writing these stories and just uploading them on their computer, and they came out on these little tablet things. And I was like, people can make money doing that? Like, I had never really thought about traditional publishing. I am far too stubborn to write query letters and try to get somebody to like me. I just couldn't see doing it. But when I realized I could do it on my own with the Kindle, I just started one weekend. I sat down and I said, I bet I could write something. Those stories are no longer published, by the way. But I did.
We were all blessed with Kindle, weren't we? I mean, it really was a wonderful opportunity. I was traditionally published, but that, it didn't take me very long to realize that I was just like you. I wanted to do it on my own.
Yeah. And it was the Wild West back then. We didn't know nobody knew what they were doing. We just were uploading, stories, and we didn't know how to format, and we didn't know how to find an editor. Like, we didn't know what we were doing. Yeah. But I did make money right out of the gate, and I started realizing, hey, I might actually be able to do this. And then I got a case of stage fright. I wrote 3 books, and I made like a good amount of money over the first 3 months. And then I went, oh, I don't know what a real author is, and I'm not a real author. So I froze because I didn't know how to outline. I still don't know how to outline. And I I just wrote by the seat of my pants. And so I thought that meant I wasn't really a legit author. So I just stopped doing it for 7 months while I froze in my seat. And then I eventually realized, this is just my way of doing it. And that's okay. This is how I do it. And I finally kind of revved back up again. So that's sort of how I got into it. And
How
then
long ago was that?
that was in 2012. Yeah, that was in August of 2012. And I did
That's when I
okay.
started too.
Yeah, I did okay for like 8 years. I just sort of moseyed about. And then in late 2019, in September 2019, I released The Beach House. And I actually intended that to be my last book, because I thought, this is going nowhere. My career's not like taking off, so I'm going to write this last book. It's going to be women's fiction, which I hadn't really written before, and we'll see what happens. And then it just obviously took off like a rocket, and then the rest is history. So
Well, and there's a reason all those books, particularly the characters. Rachel, you are gifted when it comes to creating people. And I agree with that reviewer. I mean, you feel like you really want to be friends with them, and I love Dawson too. If I wasn't married, I'd want to see Dawson.
Yeah, and it's funny, recently, I have a picture of what these characters look like in my head, and I purposely don't overly describe them because I want people to come up with their own, description. You don't know what nationality any of my characters, you just don't know. You have no idea what they look like most of the time, unless it's like Janine has curly hair. I might say something like that. So recently, though, the characters that I see in my head, I like went in search of some images that would represent, and it's so funny to see readers go, that's not what he looks like. He has this color hair and he's this age. And I'm like, wait, now I do say how old he is. He's not that age.
That's the glory of fiction, is because if you write a really great piece of fiction, it invites the reader in to participate in the story. And if you are a really good writer, you don't overwrite it. And the reader starts kind of writing some of the story in their head. And it's a different experience for every single person who picks up the book. That's remarkable to me.
I'm not like I don't like reading books that have over descriptions. Like, I don't need 5 paragraphs about what the tree outside looks like. I purposely don't do a lot of that because I'm kind of like a get to the point kind of person. So I really like a lot of dialogue, and I like a lot of action things happening. I want something always happening. And
humor, you do a great job with humor.
Oh, it's funny because I have, this, I've kind of got a goofy sense of humor, but I didn't used to put a lot of that into my books because I was like, people are going to think I'm like a nut or something. And then I sprinkled a little in around my Wisteria Island series. I started sprinkling a little in. I was like, oh, they seem to be able to take this. Okay. So then I wrote the bucket list, which just came out this past spring. And that one was full on just like, there's a lot of humor in that one. And I kind of waited, like, oh gosh. But people, it was very well received by my readers and everything. So I try as I go on to put a little more humor in here and there so that that's really who I am. I really love writing that kind of stuff. So.
Well, and it comes onto the page. They say that every author has a voice, and your voice is definitely unique, and it's definitely so much fun to read. About characters, I have some questions. I want to know, because I read most of your books, I want to know which of your characters is most like you.
Jill from The Bucket List. So that book was kind of a departure in that, well, first of all, you don't see a lot of books where the main character has anxiety unless they're going to make the character seem like weird, or like they don't just give a true sense of what it's like for somebody to have anxiety. I've had anxiety since I was like 7 years old, so I've lived with it my whole life. It shapes who I am as an author. I think it helps me with characters because I'm more like empathetic to the character. And so I thought, what would happen if I wrote this book from first person, which is not what I normally write, and I'm like myself in this book, And I mean, some of it was beyond, me, but the first scene, she's sitting there watching a GPS on her screen of her college age daughter trying to get somewhere. And it's exactly how I am. If my kids read it, which they would probably never do, but if my kids read it, they would be like, oh my gosh, that's you, because it's like, oh gosh, she stopped for 5 seconds. What if something's happening to her, as I'm watching this? So Definitely Jill is a caricature of me.
I
I'm
love
not
it.
a risk. I'm a risk taker in business and all that kind of. I'm not a physical risk taker. Like I am not going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I have never been on a roller coaster. Like I am not looking for an adrenaline rush. That's not who I am. So that's that character having then to be put through bucket list items that her adventurous best friend left for her to do after she passed away. So I loved writing that story. It was so much easier to write because it was like I was writing myself, and I was
Well,
doing
and
it.
it definitely took her out of her comfort zone,
Yeah.
which we can all relate to because we have our comfort zones,
Yes. Yes. But I've gotten so many great like letters and messages from people who have written a bucket list or they've already done some things on their bucket list or it's, or they have anxiety and it helped them see themselves in an actual book they're reading. I've had one person who gave copies to her therapist to give out to other people. And that book, it'll make you cry and it'll make you laugh, at the same time, which is a hard balance to have when you're writing, but but that was fun. And she's definitely the most like me out of all my characters.
Yeah. Well, I can see that. I can see that. Which of your characters do your readers most love to hate?
Oh, Michael from the beach house, the husband that cheated on Julie, that started the whole series. They hate him, and I understand. You're supposed to. You're supposed to.
He's worthy.
Yeah. And it's funny because whenever I run like a Facebook ad and people comment on the ad, they're always like, I hate that guy, and we should do this to him, and we should do that. And I'm like, okay, y'all realize he's not real, right? He's up here in my head. It's okay. But yeah, they definitely love to hate Michael.
It's funny because one of my very favorite quotes, and I have it written down here because I use it a lot. E.L. Doctorow once said, history tells us what happened. Fiction tells us how it felt. And you are the queen of telling how Jill felt through that whole story.
Yeah.
Jill was the bucket list.
Yeah, Julie. Yeah. I like Jay's.
Yeah.
I hope so. I mean, when I write, I really, and this as an author, there's a point in every book where you go, well, I should go get a job somewhere. How much do Walmart greeters get paid? Or, what's it like to work at Waffle House? That sort of thing. So every book, I still do that. Every book I release it. And then I go, oh, I should probably go into hiding. Like,
I know. If readers only knew that release days are such a mixture of joy and elation and absolute terror. I said, It's often like taking your clothes off and running down the freeway. I mean, it just, it
really is. And no matter how many fans you have and how much people, because people just, all day long, it's a love fest, in my Facebook group. And I love that about it because I need it. But there's always that moment where you're like, I'm going to release this book and everybody's going to unsubscribe from my mailing list. They're going to return all my books and drop them at the thrift store. You just have that moment where you think that's what's going to happen, or this is the one.
This is the current killer.
Yes. But I always,
for all of you members that are watching, we're so insecure. Thank you for every review you put up.
Yes.
Thank you for all the sweet comments. I appreciate it.
One of my favorite shows still to watch, I'm going to tell my age now, is Designing Women.
Oh, I
love Designing Women. And a lot of my characters, the women in my books will be very familiar to the Designing women. But I'll watch that. And there was this one episode where this inventor that he was talking to the women, and he invented this little box that when you opened it, there were applause, like so everybody could get a standing ovation every day. And I say that's how it feels sometimes, when you have a group or whatever, on those days where you're like, I don't think I can do this job. I don't think I can finish this book. I don't know what I'm doing, especially when you're a pantser and you don't know where you're going in the book. You don't have an outline, so going into my group every day is like that. It's like opening my little standing ovation box. Most days I'm getting, I get that kind of feedback, and that's really what keeps us going as authors is to get that immediate feedback from readers. So
it helps so much. Even if it's constructive criticism is helpful. If there's things that maybe resonated more than others, that's helpful to know. But every review is helpful. There are some meanies out there, and those people can just go away. I mean, I told my husband one time, he runs a big beef company here in Texas. And I told him, I said, there's very few jobs that you do where almost immediately you go online and people are critiquing your work.
Yeah.
you have to, meet the expectations of the owners. Okay. We have how many? 25,000. I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
But you've definitely hit the spot because your readers absolutely love you. And I'm one of them. I mean, I love your
Thank
books, Rachel. So what is your process for creating those wonderful characters? Is there something like, I always get a picture first because I'm a visual person. How do you create your people?
Every book is different. So it's like, sometimes I'll just be riding down the road in the car, my husband's driving, and I'll go, oh, I've got an idea. And it might just be a little plot idea, but sometimes it's just a character. In fact, Dixie, who's in my Beach House series, she came from a picture of a woman that I saw on American Pickers. And she was just on the screen. And this was in 2016. And I took a picture and put it on my phone. And my husband goes, what are you doing with that lady's picture? And I said, I know she's a character, but I don't know for what. So I'm just going to keep her in my phone. And one day I'll be writing and she'll just appear. And I was writing the Beach House. And she's walking down the sidewalk and this woman comes from around and I went, oh, that's that woman in my phone because I see her in my head, and so, which I think makes me mentally ill, but I feel like I've made a good career out of it. So it's like I talk to those voices and they tell me things and I write it down. But so
and again, I tell my husband, the movie plays in your head.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
It does.
It's just so different. What I do now is I've learned over the years that just from reader feedback that there is a certain experience they expect from reading my books. And I just try when I'm coming up with ideas or characters to make sure that all fits together in what I now call the Rachel Hanna experience, where every book, whether it's a romance, whether it's women's fiction, whether it's first person, third person, there needs to be an experience that readers get from me and that they can trust so that they don't pick up a book and then all of a sudden the dog dies and all these terrible things happen that they're not expecting from a Rachel Hanna book. So I try to really stick to that in whatever story it is that I'm telling, but the stories all come to me in different ways. Sometimes it's a character, sometimes it's just like, I sometimes have written down titles and then later gone back and gone, what the heck is this? Like, I don't even know what this meant, and I've written it down and then later it's a title. I have one little section of, I have a, what do you call it? The Remarkable tablet. And I have a bunch of stuff written in there. And I go in there and it said, yeah, I went there not long ago and it said a restaurant in a van down by the river. Now that I don't know what I was planning with that, Chris Farley aside, I don't know exactly what I was planning. I have no idea what that was supposed to be. But like even the bucket list that was written down like a year or so ago, like a venturous friend leaves an anxious friend, or like just little snippets will pop up. I might be watching Hoarders on TV. I might be watching Judge Judy on TV. Something will just pop in. I'm like, and I'll just make note of it. And then it comes up at some point along the way. So
I do too. I keep mine in a program called Scrivener. And it's a writing application, but I don't use it to write in. I just have file folders of all kinds of book ideas and marketing, things.
Yeah, I write in Scrivener. Actually, that's where I write. So we all do it a different way.
I know, it's amazing. And yet, we end up usually in a very similar place. So tell us one of your most interesting writing quirks.
Well,
like I eat red Twizzler licorice while I write, and Fritos.
I don't have any of those. I don't have any of those things. The worst part of my whole process, though, is that I can forget that I'm an author for long stretches of time, that I'm supposed to be writing a book. So I guess my biggest quirk is I procrastinate, and then that's how I write. Though it's like my process is. I did that even in college. Like I crammed, and I would make really good grades, but I was at the end, I'd just come in. So I think for me, my quirk, I guess, is that I have to wait for that inspiration. So like, I'll start out really strong. I might even be writing 2 books at the same time. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this many words a day. It never works. It's what we call author math, and author math will lie to you. So I think that I'm going to do it, and then I don't do it. So I can go days, weeks, and then go, I should be writing that book. I'm supposed to be releasing that book next month or 2 months from now or whatever. So
what do you do? Do you like just go away and write for 3 or 4 days, or?
I write whenever it hits.
Let me stop you though. I want to tell everyone, see that room that she's in? That is her office. I have office envy. That is the most remarkable place. So just to
That's the
clear
Mountain
the
House
numbers,
office.
that's her beautiful writing office. So your
Yeah,
process.
yeah. I mean, I really wait until it's not a good process. Okay. Let's start with that. I don't have like, I'm not an organized person. And if I try to be organized, like let's say I try to outline, I
Mhm.
completely stunt everything. Like I lose, it's like telling me the end of a movie. I lose interest if I know exactly what's going to happen. So we always have called it pantser, but I've started calling it a discovery writer because it's like
Yep.
I discover everything along the way. And there are so many books that I started just typing one day and didn't even know what the book was about. And I just type and then I'm like, oh, there's a character. Oh, and there's so many times that my husband will be sitting beside me and I'm typing away and I'll go, oh, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like I have no idea that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. And I do dictate a lot of my books. So for that to work, I have to know at least what the next scene is so that I can go dictate, and I'll walk up and down. I have a catwalk between this office and my house, and I'll walk that 60-foot catwalk back and forth. I'm sure my neighbors think I'm insane. And but I there's just little things like that. Like I have to start a book typing and get into it and get to know the characters, especially a new book or a new series. And then I can dictate, and then I can dictate most of the middle of the book. And then I'll come back at the end and I'll start typing again. It's just like my brain tells me, you got to go dictate now. You got to go type now. Like or I get just completely frozen with it. So it's an odd process.
So which do you prefer to write? The first chapter or the last chapter?
The first chapter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love those. I love standalone books or the first book in a series because you can just make it up as you go. Whereas once you're in the middle of a series, you kind of go, what season was that last one in? Like when did we end in spring or summer? And how old was that kid? Why did I make that person have a kid? Because if you make them have a kid, you got to keep up with how old the kid is and like what grade the kid should be in. Can the kid walk? Can the kid talk? Like all that kind of stuff. So it makes it harder, and slower. But I love the beginning because I can just sort of go, be much more creative at the beginning of things.
I did. The only really long series I ever did was the Maui Island series. It was 7 books. And I toward the end, it was a little hairy. You had to really start watching closely so that you weren't messing things up. And I told my editor, watch my timeline,
Yeah. Well,
Careful.
and for us, it's like we're going a long time between books.
Mhm.
But for the reader, if they are binging, they're reading one after the other. And then they're like, wait a minute.
Wait a
You
minute.
said that they went here on vacation. And then in this book, they said that they went. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't even remember what I said because that was like
Yeah.
6 books ago for me, which might be, several, like 2 years. But for the reader, it's like boom, 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 boom. So that's the hardest part. Yeah. Because this South Carolina series will be coming up on the 11th book early next year. And yeah, it's hard to keep up with what happened back in book 2.
Yeah. This might be a really good place to segue into telling the readers and telling our members here a little bit about your brand. Tell them about, I want them to know what series you have. And then with that, we've got a little bit of a unique thing we're going to tell them about that you and I talked about, a new way of selling. So tell them about the series first so they kind of know which ones they've got available to them.
Yeah. So everything I write is set in the South, and it is either at the beach or in the mountains. There is no city. There is no suburb. It is all set in those places. So I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains part of the time, which is where this place is behind me. And so I've got I've got Whiskey Ridge, which is a 5-book series. And then I've got my Sweet Tea B&B series, which is 6 books. And that both of those are complete series. And then this new series, Welcome to Jubilee, is going to be an ongoing series. So I live in a little town called Blairsville, Georgia. And Jubilee is very much based on Blairsville. It's not called that because I want to move buildings around in I want things to be the way I want them. But there are some places that I'll be talking about in those books and be able to show you like the real place. So that one's going to be at least 6 books. I know that because I have 6 covers already because I could not contain myself. So I have 6 books, and the next one comes out in September. And then I have the series that we keep calling the Beach House series. That's really not what the name of the series is called. South Carolina Sunsets. That's a mouthful. So we call it the Beach House series most of the time. that has 10 books in it so far. That is my best-selling series. It's sold over 1 million copies now. And then I also have Wisteria Island, which is just 2 books right now, but it will have at least 1 more book. That one's an interesting one. It's about a bunch of old people that live on an island because their families don't want to take care of them because they're all kind of eccentric and problematic. And this new nurse comes to work there, gets there and realizes they all hate the new nurses, and the new nurses keep leaving, and she's got to work with these people. So that one's got a lot of humor in it. And then January Cove is a 10-book, 2-novella series, complete series. And so that one's also set on the coast of Georgia and a small town. So I write all small town, all clean, all kind of women's fiction or clean romance. And my women's fiction stuff really focuses on the journey, obviously, of the women and friendships and family and mothers and daughters and starting over,
I love.
second chance at love, all that kind of stuff. So, and then I have a few standalones in there. I have The Bucket List, which is the newest one, and The Book Club on Waverly Lane is also one. And so, yeah, I've got quite a few to choose from, but they're all at the mountains or at the beach. So
Tell everyone where they can connect with you. You have a really vibrant Facebook group, right?
yes, my Facebook group is just you can put in Rachel Hanna readers, I think is what you can put in on Facebook. We've got about almost 14,000 people in my reader group now. So, and I'm in there every day. I'm in there too much, actually. I'm in there all day long. I should not be just hanging out, but that's where I am. So, but yeah, that's the best place to connect with me if you want to.
And then, of course, they can follow you on Amazon and BookBub and Goodreads, and and subscribe to your newsletter, all the things. And I would assume that all the different buttons and things are on your website. Tell them what your website is.
Yeah, so my main website is rachelhannaauthor.com. And then this probably leads into
This is a big drum roll.
So I started my direct store, officially opened in February of this year, and that is store.rachelhannaauthor.com. And yeah, so you can buy directly from me. Right now I have ebooks and audiobooks. I will have paperback soon. I have some t-shirts and things like that too. But the perk of that for any of us that are selling direct is that, first of all, you're supporting an author without the big companies in between. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that readers don't know how sometimes authors are treated by these big companies. So it's always nice when they buy direct from us. And I have bundles available that you can't get anywhere else but in my store that are at a big discount. And it's super easy when you purchase from an author. Most of us deliver with BookFunnel, and you can transfer the files to your Kindle or other devices or read on the BookFunnel app. So it's actually, I think, the wave of the future for a lot of us. We still sell on all the other platforms, but we love when readers, want to buy from us because we can offer coupons and special bundle deals and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned that here yet, and I'm there are several authors that are getting on board with this new avenue of selling, but I'm going to be announcing my store just very soon. It's open, but I'm still kind of messing with it, and Rachel was really good to spend some time with me on the phone, kind of helping me through some of that. But and I love my retail partners, but the thing that makes it really difficult for our readers is that we are really limited in what kind of discounts we can give.
Yeah.
And so, often my whole thing was I would introduce a new series by giving the first book away free, but then the rest of them would be full price. And a lot of my readers just had a really hard time, and I'm not in KU. They could get it at libraries, of course, but one of the biggest selling points for me was, beyond what the benefit to me, but the benefit to my readers is that they will be able to buy books in multitudes of bundles that we can't offer anywhere else. And they can get it at discounts that we can't offer on retailers. For example, I currently have the Maui Island series running. You can buy the entire thing for 40% off. And I know that Rachel has some amazing deals.
Yeah, my January Cove bundle, which is all 10 books and 2 novellas, is a true 60% off. So these are real deals. When you look at the prices on Amazon, you're really getting, 60% off. And that's because I want to, reward my current readers, but also bring in new readers and doing that by giving them a discount so that they can kind of really see who I am, whether they like my books or whatever. I'm even working right now on a loyalty program where they'll get points for their purchases and other things, and they can use those to get money off or to get extra discount percentages and things like that. So it's just a great way for authors to even have more personal touch with their readers. We don't get that through the bigger retailers. If you buy on Amazon, we may not ever get to talk to you. We don't get your email address. We don't get to connect with you or give you any kind of a discount. We can't give you a percentage off on Amazon, so it's a really great way. And it's been very successful for me since it opened. I was so surprised. I thought I was going to open and people are going to be like, no, thanks. We're buying on, these other platforms. But so many of they trust me. So they were willing to take a chance. And I really appreciate that, because it's been so much fun having that store and being able to offer all kinds of fun things.
Well, and it's really remarkable, because when you buy from you or me or one of the other people who are doing these stores, and they're on Shopify, so that's a trusted platform. And the books are delivered through a program called BookFunnel, which in the publishing industry is a very trusted platform as well. You can download it to your Kindle or your Nook or your whatever format you want. But the really cool thing is BookFunnel has a free app, and you can just download it to your phone and just boop right there and read it on BookFunnel and create a library just like you do with your Kindle. And so many of the former authors who've been here for live chats are opening stores. So members, y'all need to be watching, because there are going to be, I think Jan Moran was here. She started a store. Deb Clopton, Pamela Kelly, me. Who am I forgetting?
Hey, Carell.
Yep. I mean, many of us.
And we all work together behind the scenes. We all mastermind and work together to make sure that our stores are the way they need to be for our readers, and that, we're all supporting each other and trying to, not that we're trying to take our readers from another, platform, but we want to have a better connection with our readers than we can get if they're kind of anonymous to us when they buy through another platform. It's so nice to be able to offer things. And like, even I do pre-orders even on mine. And when people pre-order from me, they get the book like sometimes a week or two early. Like the Jubilee, people got it like 2 weeks early, because we have to submit it to Amazon and then wait for days and days before it's actually live. But I had it already ready to go. And I was like, okay, so I released it to the people who pre-ordered. So it's even, little perks like that are really fun to be able to give to people too. So,
yeah. So all of you here, I want you to go check out Rachel's store. So tell them again how to get there so that they can go check it out.
Just go to store.rachelhannaauthor.com and it'll take you right there. And at the very top, you'll see the link to my Facebook group. So you can join that too if you want to.
So when we get off here, just like always, we've not been able to see your comments. So if you have any questions for Rachel, if you want to, ask her questions about her books, if you've read her books and you want to tell her that you've enjoyed them, put a comment. And then she and I, when we end this, we're going to go read all the comments and we'll reply. And I'm going to ask Rachel that when she goes in there, if she will go ahead and put the link to her store.
Yeah. Sure.
And that way you guys can find it just easy peasy. So, and then normally we do some kind of a giveaway thing, but you and I talked a little bit about maybe doing something different tonight.
Yeah. Well, what did we talk about, Kelly?
Well, we talked about a coupon, but I wasn't sure if you had.
Yes. I'll put a coupon code. You want me to just put that into the comments?
Yeah. So, normally we give one winner. Well, tonight you're all winners, because Rachel is going to put a coupon code in the comments, and that will allow you to use that coupon to go to her store and get a discount.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you join my Facebook group through tomorrow, which is the 4th, I am actually doing a giveaway in my group for 9 signed January Cove books that had an old cover that is a set of 9 books. One person's going to win, and they're all signed, and they're going to be shipped to that one person. So if you end up in my group between now and tomorrow, then you can also look for that post. And
there's a bunch of you guys that really like to have physical books, so there's your opportunity. Yeah. Anything else you want to tell these folks, Rachel, before we go?
This has been fun, and I hope you'll come and visit my store and hang out with me in my group and see what a nut I am. And pick up some books if you're looking for a laugh. I recommend the bucket list, especially if you're looking for a laugh. So.
And I would particularly recommend this. I'm going to be reading it this weekend. I started the first chapter, and it says Madeline Harper has been one of the most popular romance authors in the world for decades. But when her marriage falls apart and her agent says her publisher doesn't want her newest book, everything in her life suddenly shifts in the opposite direction. So I'm going to be reading about this poor romance author and what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a delight to have you here. And thank you all members for being here too. You guys are so good to show up. And don't forget to go check out that coupon code. And I'll be announcing my store address very soon. And I hope you'll check that out too. So, all right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.